What a way to start today's reading. Jesus and the disciples are surrounded by these huge crowds of people, and they're all shouting how crazy he is. I mean, that's a way to kick things off. And what's his family do when they hear about this? The Bible says they went to restrain him. I mean, can you picture it? Mary holding her head and going, "Oh, guys, please, someone go get your brother. He's making a scene over there." We all have that one member of the family, right, that everyone thinks is a little bit nutty. Maybe it's a crazy aunt or an eccentric uncle. And if you don't think you have that member of the family, there's a good chance you are that member of the family. I've just assumed I'm that member. But it's Jesus' comments about family at the end of this passage that are really worth taking note of. The family passes a message along through the crowd that they're looking for him, to which he replies, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" This isn't like when you're a stubborn little kid who yells, "You're not my mommy." This is more Jesus using this as an opportunity to give us a new perspective on what family is. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother, he tells the crowd. So that means we have quite a family reunion happening inside this room right now. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ, united under a common goal, to be God's hands and feet in the world. I mean, just look at the situation that Jesus was in here. Did he feel more support from those who were related through blood, who just wanted to get him out of the mess? Or those related by their relationship to God, who believed in his ministry and were prepared to yell back, "Hey, he is not crazy"? If you've ever been to a support group of any kind, you can probably attest to the fact that when a group of people share their common struggles with one another, it helps them realize that their emotions and their actions aren't so crazy. I've witnessed this firsthand in grief support groups where people who felt something was wrong with them because their emotions or their actions didn't match up with where society was saying they should be at that time. But in the confines of their group, their new family, they realized they were perfectly normal. Maybe being a Christian isn't all that different. There are plenty of people on the outside who think our religion is at odds with the rest of the world, that we don't act the way that normal people do. And some might even say our beliefs are downright strange, like that comic strip about cannibalism and vampires. And if I'm being honest, maybe they're all right. The Apostle Paul wrote, "We are fools for the sake of Christ." He understood the way we act might look a little weird sometimes to people. He said, "When reviled, we bless. When persecuted, we endure. And when slandered, we speak kindly." In a society that says we need to reach the highest company position, or make the most money, or have all the attention on us, we're promoting a message that says we should humble ourselves before others, look for the people our money can help, and give a voice to those who have been silenced. If we're going against the status quo, it's because we let one word guide our actions: love. It's like the hymn we've sometimes sung here. They will know we are Christians by our love. If you happen to be one of the 29 million people who tuned into the royal wedding recently, you probably heard Bishop Michael Curry speaking about that very thing. Think and imagine a world where love is the way, he challenged everyone who was listening. Imagine our homes and families where love is the way. Imagine neighborhoods and communities where love is the way. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce where love is the way. And imagine this tired old world where love is the way. This message resounded with a lot of people. It was the talk of the internet. Why? Well, with news outlets constantly telling us who hates who and how divided we all are, this message comes along which, in that moment, gave people a glimpse of what the world might look like if we actually united in love. People yearn for that unity more than we're told. There was a cartoon I saw online recently that had a chart dividing our society in two halves, and both sides are busy yelling insults at one another. But then the chart breaks things down a little more below it, and we see all those insults are really coming from two extremes on either side. Meanwhile, everyone else in the middle is yelling, "Stop it, stop it, stop it!" Unfortunately, they're too focused on those divisions. However, if that large majority in the middle work together, they might start to drown out the noise of those extremes. Jesus tells a series of parables in today's gospel that echoes this idea. He's been traveling around, healing people, forgiving sins, casting out demons. And the scribes, who are keepers of the Jewish law, didn't like this Jesus guy coming in and claiming to do things only God could. So they accused him of being possessed and say, he's using the power of Satan to cast out demons. And Jesus simply asks, how can Satan cast out Satan? He points out that a kingdom or a house that's divided by itself can't stand. And Jesus also explains this idea by saying, you can't steal from a strong man's house without tying him up first. Once you do that, then you can take whatever you want. The more we get bound up by all our fighting, the more we leave ourselves open for bad things to happen. Gonna call on some help from our younger members now on this one. By a show of hands, how many of you guys saw Captain America: Civil War? It's taken me a year and a half, but I finally worked Captain America into a sermon. All right, so in that movie, we've got the main villain, Zemo, right? And he wants to get revenge on all the Avengers, but he has no powers. So how does someone with no superpowers think he can possibly take on all these superheroes? Who can tell me? Anyone know what's his plan? Yeah, Cole?
To make them turn against themselves.
To make them turn on themselves. He realizes all he has to do is turn them against one another, and they'll do the work for him. An empire toppled by its enemies can rise again, he tells them at the end. But one which crumbles from within, that's dead forever. So if unity is what we need most right now, where do we find it? And what does it look like? Let's start on a smaller scale, right here in this very building. The United Church of Christ has a term they like to use: extravagant welcome. This goes beyond a friendly greeting to everyone who walks in our doors. There was an old UCC commercial that showed a little girl reciting the old nursery rhyme. Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the doors and see.
All the people.
All the people. Those three words we hear repeated and repeated by numerous people, black and white, LGBTQ and straight, old and young, those who are disabled and those who are not. We're committed to showing that God's love has no limitations and no exceptions. Furthermore, I've had many of our members tell me they love coming each week because people are interested and invested in the lives of one another. If you've gone away for a while on vacation, it's an amazing feeling to walk through these doors and hear, "We missed you! How have you been? How'd the family enjoy your trip?" It's a comfort to know that we can also share our pain and struggles with one another. Whether in the confines of a small group study, we can share our heartache with one another, and we found people who we can confide in and new friendships that we've formed. This isn't the family that we're born into, but it is certainly the family we get to choose. Beyond the immediate family we have here, it's important to look past these walls to our extended family, the wider church. Picture a smaller church group gathering to do a mission project or a march downtown. Imagine that group joined by 2 or 3 other churches now. Are you more likely to notice 30 people walking through town or 130 people walking through town? When we stop thinking of ourselves as just individual churches and switch to the view of ourselves as part of the universal church, the full scope of what we can achieve begins to take shape. Now in Milford, a number of our churches have teamed up for Holy Week services, and I've heard some exciting ideas being bounced around, like maybe doing a music swap where our worshiping musicians could share their contemporary style with another church one Sunday, and in exchange we can hear the music of that church's organist and singers, things like that. There's also an amazing thing brewing in our church conference right now. Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts have been hard at work to unite the conferences of all 3 states into one. I recently had the pleasure of hearing someone close to this project describe their thought process on it. You could have 2 churches, she said, on opposite sides of the Connecticut-Massachusetts border who have so much in common. But because they're part of different conferences, that partnership never happens. She reminded us that borders among states are invisible, man-made creations, and that we should instead work together as one. It will be really exciting to see what happens when this is officially voted on at the meeting this coming weekend. And still, our family extends even further than that. It's like one of those ancestry DNA tests that people sometimes do. You mail in a sample of your DNA, and before you know it, you're discovering relatives you never knew existed and places you never knew you were even connected to. Our family of God grows by leaps and bounds when we break down those invisible barriers that divide us based on religion or beliefs. When we see that every living soul is a child of God, is a wonderful, unique child of God, we become a true force for change in the world. You may have heard me stress before the importance of creating an environment where the older and the younger generations come together to create a new vision for the future. The older generation has lived experiences that form the foundation for new ideas. And the younger generation brings a fresh perspective and a new energy that can carry those ideas into the next age. This summer, Bruce and the Combatants for Peace will be working together on a new billboard project. Youth from Israel and Palestine will join with Christian, Jewish, and Muslim youth from Connecticut to promote a message of peace and to remind everyone that we are so much stronger united than divided. One person with one great idea for change can be a spark in the world. Looking behind me, I'm reminded of that Pentecost fire we spoke about several weeks ago. What started out as some tongues of flame spread throughout the land to create a movement that lit the whole world on fire with the love and the light of God. That fire has carried God's children all the way to this time and this place. I'm looking around the room, and I see a whole bunch of sparks ready to keep that fire burning in new and exciting directions. Where will we go? What will we do? The ball's in your court. Lead the way. Amen.